Thanks, everybody. Okay, this afternoon I'm going to talk about win-win-win billing. And I wanted to, just before I get started, a little plug for my friend Ruby Powers, who just presented. Great podcast and a great book. So I told her I'd drink my tea from her mug as I presented. So today I want to discuss how flat fee billing can really revolutionize your practice. And it creates a win not just for you as the attorney, but also for all of your team, for your clients, but also for the business itself. Now, my name is Bo Atkins. I'm the CEO of Evolve Law. We started practicing in 2020, right in the advent of the COVID. Founded May 2020. And since that time, we have done nothing but flat fee billing on all family law matters. So we've done trials, we've done the full gambit. The lawyers at my office, we've got 4.5 attorneys. One's an articling student. We have that term in Canada. She'll be a lawyer shortly. Have never billed for a second of their time. So they don't know the concept of hourly billing. Now, the agenda I'm going to walk through is what we as lawyers sell, the services that we're selling our clients, how we package those products. I call them products because it gets me in that mindset. How we deliver those products or services. I'm going to propose a better way, and I'm going to challenge people and say every practice area could be doing this. I don't think there's any practice that could not be billing on a flat fee. And if we've got time at the end, I'd like to invite anyone to challenge me on that. If you have an area you don't think is appropriate for flat fee billing, I'd love to hear from you. Well, first, the story. So I asked ChatGPT to generate a picture of a young firecracker lawyer with a cheap suit that he bought off the rack and a tie that doesn't match. Because that was me. I never had the chiseled jaw, the flowing locks this guy has, or the dimple chin, but otherwise, an okay job. Well, so I started practice like most other people, fair-sized office, 20 lawyers, 25 lawyers, and I was hungry. I was ambitious. I was probably more aggressive than I needed to be, probably less humble than I should have been. But I was a workhorse. I wanted to be on that partnership track. And so I want to tell you about my 28-hour day, which I was super proud of this. And so I want to walk you how I got there. So at my office, we billed $900 for a real estate transaction. My hourly rate was $200 an hour. So do the math, 3 real estate transactions in a day. I entered it as time because that's how I was taught to enter all my billables. So there's 13.5 hours. Actually, probably spent maybe 3. That might be generous because most of real estate, anyone who practices it, might not even spend an hour on the day of a signing. Emails, I figure I answered about 30, what's the math on this? 37 hours or 37 emails at 0.2 of an hour for each email. We had that in our engagement agreement, so it wasn't that much of a shocker to clients. That's just what we billed. It was an industry standard. Some do a 0.1, some 0.2. I had drafting tasks. So at that point, I was charging an hour to draft a divorce petition, an hour for the financial statement, an hour for the property statement. So drafted about 6 documents. Again, I was efficient, I was hungry, I was developing all these processes, and so I billed 6 hours for that. And then I had a client meeting, probably charged an hour for that, whether or not it took that. And then with legal aid in our jurisdiction, they're a bit wise to it. They won't accept the 0.2s. They say, yeah, we know that's not actually a 0.2, so we want you to be a bit more accurate, so maybe 0.05. Either way, it all added up to 28 hours. Probably worked, it definitely worked less than 10 to generate that. I say this I say this aware that the statute of limitations in my jurisdiction is up. I was a fraud and a thief. I was a grocer with my thumb on the scale, but both the scale and the thumb were hidden from my clients. They didn't know all this. I don't think they'd be happy about this. And so I want to get into what we sell as lawyers, because we don't sell our time. There are certain professions, some of you can be creative and think about which professions those are, that do sell time. There's an anecdote, I don't know if this is true or not, but there was a CEO of a tool manufacturer company, holds a drill up at his annual general meeting and asks everybody, some of you are probably familiar with this, I think it was in Good to Great, or it was in one of those business books. And he says, what do we sell? And he goes around the room, people are saying power tools, drills, all of these different things. And finally he goes up and powerfully drills a hole in a piece of wood, holds it up. That's what we sell. As lawyers, our piece of wood, or the piece of wood with a hole in it, is certainty. It's peace of mind. When clients come into our offices, they are uncertain about something, they want to be made certain about it. Now, very few of us sell 100% certainty. In fact, I always tell my clients, I can't sell 100% certainty. There's always an X factor that adds a shroud of doubt. But we sell varying degrees, somewhere between zero, hopefully somewhere between 50% and 100%. But we don't ever ask clients, what degree of certainty do you want? We don't give them that option. And so we sell the billable hour, and then we also are a little bit opaque with what we're actually selling. Now, when we talk about how we sell, the way we sell our products or services, there's an hourly rate. And as Jack talked about in his keynote, it's problematic. The risk is on the client, kind of. I mean, he also spoke about how the average lawyer bills out 3 hours a day. I don't know about you guys. I sure work a lot more than 3 hours a day. It's uncertain. There's no certainty for anybody. So at the very first opportunity we're given to provide certainty to a client, we fail when we talk about our fees. There's time tracking. I know I hated that part of it. And there's an inherent conflict of interest. Whenever we're charging an hourly rate, there's a conflict of interest there. Same thing with contingency fees. Again, maybe it's a little bit less risky for the client on the outset. It's still uncertain, and there's still a conflict of interest. You hear about lawyers getting in trouble with contingency agreements all the time. And then there's alternative fees, which are flat or fixed. That's what I'm going to discuss mostly. And of course, subscription. And I strongly recommend checking out the Fidu group. Kim Bennett has been doing this stuff for a long time. I love the concept of a subscription model. I haven't really figured out how to incorporate it. Now, first with the hourly rate, I hated it because it tethered me to my time. And it was pervasive in everything I did. I started thinking about taking my son to the park, that I could spare a 0.4. If he's lucky, I'll stretch it into a 0.6. And that's how I thought around almost everything I did. Some of you might know Richard Susskind. He wrote a great book called Tomorrow's Lawyer, now in its fourth edition. But he talks about that, how it is dishonest, the way most lawyers, and I'm not going to paint everybody with a brush. I'm going to paint myself with that brush. I was dishonest. Every single lawyer in that 25 lawyer office I worked in was dishonest. Because if I had to poll the room and ask, do you think I was celebrated or do you think I was reprimanded for that 28-hour day? What do you guys think? This is an example. I'll get into it later, but my team, I've developed a fantastic team, and this is a slide that My sales and marketing said, oh, you should have left this one out. But I'll quickly move past that slide. I'm going to introduce my team in a bit. With respect to contingency billing, again, it's a little bit better because from an access to justice standpoint, people can at least access your services, but there's still a lot of uncertainty with it. It's unavailable to a lot of areas of law in my jurisdiction. Family law is out for a good reason because contingency really, when I talk about the possibility for abuse in Canada, there have been serious abuses from our most marginalized groups, the Indigenous communities, where they've got these massive settlements. Lawyers are taking almost as much as the clients are at the end of the day. And again, shout out to Ruby because she introduced me to T. Harv Ekker's book, The Millionaire Mindset. And it talks about how, again, going back to Richard Susskind, I think he mentioned this quote saying, try to convince a group of a room full of millionaires that there's a problem with your billing model, you'll fall flat. And I think that's been the biggest challenge with the flat fee billing model is people are still doing okay charging by the hour. But as we've seen in a lot of these AI talks, it's going to get more and more challenging. It's going to get a lot more competitive. So now I want to talk about a better way. And talk about how I developed that. I think there's a number of different approaches you can take, but this is just the one that we followed. So I talk about 4 levels of segmentation. So some of you would have heard, probably almost everybody would have heard of unbundled services. I don't do unbundled services. I've always thought unbundled services has this weird perception. Although it increases access to justice, there's a perception from clients and everybody that it's lesser than. And I didn't want my clients getting lesser than service with unbundled services, but I wanted transparency. So although I do technically, if you lift up the look behind the curtain, it is technically unbundled. It's only unbundled to my client. They know each thing that they're doing. To the rest of the world, I'm the lawyer fully representing this person. I've had people challenge me on that, say, well, what if you get caught on a trial or you get caught on something? It's going to vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction. People in my jurisdiction talked about that. It has never happened. And quite frankly, I think that's a cost of doing business. Sometimes you eat it. Sometimes you end up quoting a price, takes you a lot longer than you wished it would have. And you learn from that. Maybe you adjust your prices, but you also probably end up gaining on all the other ones. Now, when I talk about market segmentation, I've borrowed a lot of my approaches from other industries. So I guess backing up a couple steps, in a former life, I worked in construction. That's how I put myself through law school. I was a tile setter. So I'd install backsplashes, do all the ceramic tiles and stuff like that. People would expect me to show up with my tape measure, measure the area, figure out the cuts I have to make, figure all this. I'm the expert. I should know what I'm doing and give them a flat fee. Nobody would pay me an hourly rate not knowing how much it's going to cost. I should know it. And I'm going to suggest that's the same approach we should be taking to law. We should be able to know at least enough of a snippet. So when I use that analogy with clients, I say, I can quote this one room. We're going to have more rooms to tile, but I know this is your next step. If we have to go do if we have to do something else, we have to have another conversation. In any event. So it starts with market segmentation. I think it's very important to know your market. Every successful business does that. You know who you're selling to. You know your target client profile. And the reality is, if your client profile is anybody with a legal problem or anybody with uncertainty that comes in your door, you're going to be providing mediocrity because you can't get good at everything. You can't provide excellent service at everything. You can't continually refine your products to sell to that person who's facing something in the criminal justice system. And then also refine your processes. It just doesn't work because everything from your waiting room has to be designed differently. My family law clients don't want to spend time in an elevator and then sit in a stuffy waiting room next to somebody's criminal law clients. It's with design. After you figure out what you're going to sell, who your target client is, I suggest role segmentation. There's an excellent book by an author named Michael Gerber called The E-Myth. He talks about 3 roles inside of every business, and he's not talking law firms, he's talking all businesses. The 3 roles are the entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager. And he suggests each of those roles need to act independently of one another. I identified when I started my office all of these different, I'm probably up to about 20. I should have updated this slide a little bit. When I left my last partnership and started Evolve, I left a 4-year practice with $750,000 in AR. To say I was incompetent at at least a part of the accounting, the collections, is an understatement. Think about any other business with that much drift. And so, thankfully, I was competent at the lawyer task, so that was the start, but there were a lot of the other roles I wasn't. And as we've alluded to, PowerPoint isn't even my strong point. That's probably got to go to somebody else at some point. I had a benefit. I founded my office with my brother. The benefit of doing that is you can yell and swear and scream at one another and still sit around the table for Thanksgiving at Mom's. But early on in this journey, we were both on the sales and marketing team, and so I'm in that meeting, and he yelled and swore at me, saying, "Bo, take off your effing lawyer hat. We do not need a lawyer in this meeting." And that's when it dawned on me, I was bringing my lawyer hat in with me to all of those meetings, and it really wasn't appropriate. You might need the lawyer in for compliance. There's a lot of places where you got to bring them in. It's not every part of your business. That would suffocate any other business. If you had a lawyer in that room applying their lawyer mindset, no business would succeed. After I identified all the different roles, I figured out, okay, what do I suck at? What should I get out of? What should I bring people in? And then sort of at the same time, once we knew what type of product we were going to sell, we had the roles, we started figuring out what products are we going to sell. And so what we identified, and it's evolving, we've got about 60 to 70 products. I call them products because I like to conceptualize something I can pull off the shelf. So it's not intangible. And so all of our products have a very defined start and a very defined finish. They also have very clear billing milestones, a very transparent price, identification of when we're going to bill. So clients see it all. If we don't finish the product and we've hit a couple billing milestones, that money either gets transferred to another product or service, or we return it to the client. After product segmentation, and as I said, that's constantly evolving. We now have a process. If there's something else where our team identifies something new as a potential product, we have a process to develop that product. The other benefit with that, and I'll give another plug to a Canadian company, AltFee. They've helped us map this out. We can easily, once you've got the products, you just have to add a few things, and it's like ordering off a menu. Then finally, once you have that task list, you can break it into the actual to-dos. What do you have to do to deliver this product? And the beauty of that, once you've got all those task lists, you've also got the roles. Now you can automate a lot of the things in that. So I don't see a client. My goal was that lawyers would never have to do anything you do not need a law degree to do, because that's why they get paid what they get paid. They went through that school. Why would they be going out and network, doing things that, yes, some might be competent at, but that's not what their role is. That's not, their clients don't want to pay a hidden fee somewhere because that lawyer has to go market on the golf course. And so that's how we built our process. At this point, so I'm also a giant nerd. So I've got this thing I do where I go to all these bookstores and thrift shops and I pick up a bunch of books, even a lot of the ones I've read before. So I've got a big stack there. Anybody who wants some reading material on the plane home, ask a question, make a comment, pick out a book. So at this point, I'll open it up to anybody who either has a question, comment, or wants to challenge me on an area of law that they don't think could be flat feed. And I'm not sure, do we have a mic? There was going to be a mic. If not, I can just repeat the question. So we'll go 2 in a row there, first in front, and then we'll get to you, sir. So I considered that when I was building this. So I had partners at my previous office, and that was the roadblock I met with them when I was talking flat fee billing. And then I polled them. I'm like, okay, I've been practicing 7 years, you guys 10, 11. So add it all up, 28 years. How many times have you guys been taxed? Once. I'm like, that's a cost of doing business. At that point, that's how I viewed it in my jurisdiction. Again, where it happens a lot more frequently. I've had really great talks with our registrar, and I'm like, I've told him, if I have this very, very transparent engagement agreement, so I mentioned all those products, every single time we get a client on a new product, it goes out with an engagement agreement. They've signed up for this. So if I've hit a billing milestone, I should be able to track that. And if I've done that, they agreed to it. They signed it. And so we haven't been tested, but I'm fairly confident that it would hold up better than a billable hour. Yeah, so the question was if there's tips or suggestions for clients who basically abuse the process and inundate you with questions and things like that. I was surprised that clients don't really want to talk to me all that often. Like, despite what lawyers might think, a call to your lawyer isn't, I haven't found it being taken for granted. And what I've found is that we can create all these systems that go out. And so if I've got these frequently asked questions, now I can spearhead that and I can create a document right at the outset. Clients are always asking me about this. Here, we'll send it out. We'll put it in an FAQ. We'll do something like that. But that's one of the problems. When you're tethered to a scarce resource like your time, finding the time to actually develop that, you struggle with that alone. And whereas if the flat fee model really lends itself to making yourself more efficient, because that cuts into the bottom line. Efficiencies make margins bigger. Anyone who does want to, I haven't done with questions, so anyone who has questions, but you can also connect with me. I'm mostly active on LinkedIn, so I invite anyone who wants to talk about any of this or anything else. Any other questions? Yes. To map it, alt fee, was it? Alt fee. They've got a booth downstairs. Fidoo has a booth downstairs with subscription. When I talk about those task lists, Clio Manage has been our saving grace. Our lawyers come in, and so like I mentioned, none of my lawyers have ever built, they've all grown up in the ecosystem of our office, and they come in, it's very clear. Everything they need to do, there's a task list. There's no guesswork. There's no chasing yourself. Sorry, and I struggled with that. So the question was if you have this ongoing thing and such a variation from one client to another, how do you quote that? I struggled with that with our negotiation product, our negotiation service, because again, you go back and forth till your head's bleeding from hitting it against the wall. And what I identified needing to do is have a clear start and finish to those parameters. So our negotiation service product includes, we will work with the client to create the proposal that we're going to send over. We will receive the response. Once we receive the response, we'll review it, schedule a call, talk to the client, and then we're going to send a reply to that response. You are now done your negotiation service. We priced it accordingly, maybe $1,500 or depends. We have factors, difficulty factors for clients. If we have a zero tolerance policy at our office, if you've yelled at staff, you're gone. But if you've caused friction anywhere in that process, I'm building it into that flat fee that I'm quoting. And then at the end of that, once we've sent that reply, now we can have that discussion. So we've done that. Do you want to continue negotiating? I can keep doing this. So I would suggest that if you broke it down into this $1,000 includes a face-to-face and 4 emails or something like that. And again, some of them you're going to lose on, but the way I've priced it, I figure we're probably out 60, anywhere from 2/3 to 3/4 of the time. We charge more than we would if we were hourly, and that covers the 1/3 to 25% that we're eating it. Yes, sir. We send an engagement agreement. So if it's just drafting an offer, a lot of times, so if it's a quick email and there's no other follow-up, maybe $500, we'll do that. That doesn't include anything. You want another call, that's $200 or, and just pulling numbers out. But, and then I'm not sure if that answers your question. So the question was how much of it's cost-based and value-based billing. So when I started this whole process, I tethered, all I knew was my hourly rate. All I knew was, again, how I was robbing clients when I was charging an hourly rate. So I tethered it to that. I'm like, I usually charge, I don't know, $3,000 for a petition. And so I tethered it to that. And now we've gotten it so efficient that I bet we can probably churn out a petition in 15 minutes. So $3,000 for 15 minutes of a lawyer's time, because you continually to get it efficient at that stuff. So that's, yeah, if that answers your question. Sir? So you're asking what the distinction between unbundling and flat fee is. The distinction is a conversation. And so if let's say, again, we do all divorce work, so or family law. If someone comes to me and says, I want to start with a petition, okay, $3,500. I'm still your lawyer. I can still get served documents, the response documents. The second I get served those response documents, a phone call gets scheduled and I have the conversation with the client. I'm very transparent. We've got those documents. The next step, in my opinion, is to set up mediation or draft a proposal. Now we've got their position. The fee for that is going to be X. And the other awesome benefit we've found from this is we can also, once you've got a flat fee, it's very easy to open it up to payment plans. So now we can offer payment plans to clients. Now, in my jurisdiction, industry standard is a 2% or 28% annual on outstanding bills. And so it's become, I would love to operate at an efficiency where I can basically offer almost free payment plans. The reality is I'm not set up as a financer or a business to do that. And so it's become another fairly substantial revenue stream, is just offering those payment plans. Again, very transparent. you want to set this up on a 1-year plan, this is exactly how much it's going to cost you. So every decision we make is with that transparency and thinking about our customers, our clients. I am out of time, but I invite anybody, come grab a book. I would also love to talk to anyone who has any further questions. It's something I'm super passionate about.